Hello, 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 hello. Looks like things might be getting started. We have a judge at the bench. Welcome to Disorder in the Court, where we talk about people's behavior in the room where their lives matter the most. Good morning. You should have just gone to the game, Chris. My favorite account name on the internet. Good morning.
So I believe it's just taking a comfort break.
He's what?
He's taking a comfort break.
Good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So it doesn't really look like they're ready to start, but they have a feed going. I figured I'd go ahead and get started and we can chat until they get started. It might be one of those things where the camera is just testing itself out. Hello, hello, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So someone was talking yesterday about who does that lawyer look like? Who does that lawyer look like? She reminds me of Elaine from the Depp versus Heard trial. Anyone else? Anyone else see Elaine sitting there? Hopefully she's much more competent than Elaine from Amber Heard's attorney. Because Adam needs a competent Sally Jesse Raphael. Yeah. Yeah, that's one too. I just like she even feels like she kind of has that Elaine energy a little bit, but literally the only time I've ever heard this woman speak is when she was when they were in court the other day. Red glasses would make it pop. Yeah. So this is going to be a tough one, and usually takes a while to start getting into, you hear some of the details of the horrifying nature of the crime in the opening arguments, but usually you don't start getting into the nitty-gritty details and start seeing the evidence come out that hasn't been out yet, deeper into the trial. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm just going to warn you. I'm an emotional person. I tear up pretty easily, especially when it comes to these cases with kids. And good morning, Marie. And this little girl, Harmony Montgomery, was just 5 years old, you guys. And just as adorable as can be. I love the picture that I ended up putting on my thumbnail. Just adorable as can be. I've seen reported that she may have had special needs. I don't know. All I know is that she was 5 years old and she was defenseless. And so, yeah, I'm confused about that. I think Yorkie is saying Court TV is reporting he waived his right to be there. I didn't know he could even do that. I thought the defendant had to be there. I don't think they have to be there for jury selection. And I think that they were just talking about jury selection. I could be wrong about this, but that's what I was reading, was that he waived the right to be there for the jury selection part. And I don't think they have to be there for that. Yeah. And basically what everybody, yeah, your daughter is that the daughter? Is that the child? You've had another child since then, right? You should have gone to the game, Chris. Anyway, so I vividly remember every age of my kids. They were so cute and they were so innocent and they were so curious, and I could not imagine Oh, yeah, I noticed it was, you could retract your repeating chats if you want. 43. Wow, you're my hero. Jeez, Chris. Not only do you have the best name in YouTube true crime, but you had a child at 43. Man, my hat is off to you. If I was wearing a hat, but I'm not wearing it right now. Hello, Sparkles. So yes, please remember to thumbs up the stream. And Chris says, I work from home. I'm always at work. Baby is napping. Yeah. I worked from home for the time of my kids' lives when they were in junior high and high school. And man, that was a godsend because I made my own schedule. And before that, I had been working like, and I'm not joking, anywhere between 60 and 70, 80-hour weeks. And it was untenable. There's no way I could do that when they were in junior high and high school and get them everywhere they needed to go and, make sure they weren't falling off the deep end. Me being a recovering alcoholic mom, don't want them to end up in the same boat as me. So all of that. Yeah. And anyone who might be listening or is in chat doesn't know what you should have gone to the game Chris is about. It's about the Chris Watts case. If he had gone to the game, he says himself that if he had gone to the game, he wouldn't have killed his wife and children. I honestly don't believe that. He probably would have done it anyway. Everything that comes out of that guy's mouth is an utter lie. And for anybody here who's from Watts Island, like, you should have gone to the game, Chris.
Ready, yes, sir.
Attorney Smith, Attorney Brooks, ready?
Oh.
We'll bring the jurors in now.
Yeah, bring it.
Please rise for the jury.
Wow. And I don't see Adam in there, so maybe right that he waived his right to be there even for opening statements. That is kind of weird. That is weird. That is weird. Yeah, this is a really, really difficult case. That's why I think it's good to, be able to watch with people who are sympathetic. Isn't that crazy? Carlito Scara? Isn't that, did you say you were going to go, Carlito Scara? Or are you just watching streams now? Wow. I thought they just meant for jury selection, but it is wild that he's not there today for opening arguments.
All right, I'll ask the jurors to please remain standing. Everyone else, you may be seated.
Members of the jury, I'm going to swear you in now. So if you could please raise your right hands.
Welcome.
And at the conclusion of the oath, if you would please say, I will. You so solemnly swear or affirm that you will carefully consider the evidence and the law presented to you in this case, and that you will deliver a fair and true verdict as to the charges against the defendant, so help you God. Thank you, members of the jury. You can be seated. I'm going to now read the charges to you in this matter. There's 5 charges. The first is charge ID 193-7947C. This states that Adam Montgomery of Manchester, New Hampshire, in the state of New Hampshire, between approximately July 1st and July 22nd, 2019, at Manchester in the county of Hillsborough aforesaid, did commit the crime of second-degree assault, in that Adam Montgomery did knowingly cause bodily injury to HM, date of birth 6/7/2014, a child under the age of 13 by striking her in the face. Said acts being contrary to the form of the statute in such case made and provided and against the peace and dignity of the state. The next charge in this matter is charge ID 202-7112C, And this states that Adam Montgomery of Manchester in the state of New Hampshire, on or about December 7th, 2019, at Manchester in the county of Hillsborough aforesaid, did commit the crime of second-degree murder, in that Adam Montgomery did recklessly cause the death of Harmony Montgomery, date of birth 6/7/2014, a person under 13 years of age, under circumstances manifesting an extreme indifference to the value of human life, by repeatedly striking Harmony Montgomery on the head with a closed fist. Said acts being contrary to the form of the statute, in such case made and provided and against the peace and dignity of the state. The next charge is charge ID 2027113C, and this states that Adam Montgomery of Manchester in the state of New Hampshire, between approximately December 7th, 2019 and March 4th, 2020, at Manchester in the county of Hillsborough aforesaid, did commit the crime of falsifying physical evidence, in that Adam Montgomery, believing that an official proceeding, as defined in RSA 641:1, Roman numeral 2, or an investigation was pending or about to be instituted, did purposely alter, destroy, conceal, or remove the body of Harmony Montgomery with a purpose to impair its verity or availability in such proceeding or investigation. Said acts being contrary to the form of the statute, in such case made and provided and against the peace and dignity of the state. The next charge in this matter is charge ID 2027114C, and this states that Adam Montgomery of Manchester, New Hampshire, at Manchester, between December 7th, 2019 and March 4th, 2020, did commit the offense of abuse of a corpse, in that the defendant did purposely and unlawfully removed, concealed, or destroyed the corpse of Harmony Montgomery or any part thereof. And this is against the peace and dignity of the state. And then the last charge is charge ID 2027115C, and this states that Adam Montgomery of Manchester in the state of New Hampshire, between approximately December 7th, 2019 and January 4th, 2022, at Manchester in the county of Hillsborough aforesaid, did commit the crime of tampering with witnesses and informants, in that Adam Montgomery, believing that an official proceeding as defined in RSA 641:1, Roman numeral 2, or investigation was pending or about to be instituted, did purposely attempt to induce or otherwise cause Kayla Montgomery to testify or inform falsely. Said acts being contrary to the form of the statute, in such case made and provided and against the peace and dignity of the state. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant, Adam Montgomery, has been arraigned on these charges, and he has pleaded not guilty. And of this, he puts himself upon his country for trial, which country you are. Assistant Attorneys General Benjamin Agati and Christopher Knowles for the state have joined the issue, and you are to say by your verdict if the defendant, Adam Montgomery, is guilty of the crimes whereof he stands indicted or not guilty. Hearken to the evidence. Thank you.
Members of the jury, shortly you will hear opening statements by counsel. Before that, I'm going to give you some general instructions as to the law that applies to this case and some other matters, which will give you some guidance as you consider the evidence in this case. After you have heard the evidence and you have heard closing arguments, you will hear further instructions from the court, and then you will retire to the jury deliberation room to decide your verdict. You should consider all of the instructions I give you, both now and at the end of the case as a whole, and not single out one particular instruction as stating the law. You will also have written copies of my instructions with you in the jury deliberation room. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a memory test. What I ask of you now is just listen carefully to the instructions that I give to you. You will have as many copies as you like in the deliberation room when it comes to decide your verdict. So you will have written copies of both the instructions that I give you now, as well as the ones that I give you at the end of the case as a whole. And every juror can have one available to them. So please just listen carefully now as I give you these instructions. The function of the court and the jury. In order to reach a fair and just verdict, you must understand and follow the law as I explain it to you. For example, you have to understand the definitions of the crimes with which the defendant is charged. You have to understand how convinced one way or the other you should be before deciding your verdict. You have to understand what to consider in deciding whether to believe a particular witness. These instructions will explain the law as to these and other matters so that you can reach a fair and just verdict. It is your duty as jurors to follow all of the instructions I'm about to give you. Regardless of any opinion you may have as to what the law ought to be, the law as I explain it to you is the law you must follow in reaching your verdict. It is up to you to decide the facts. You must decide the facts solely from the evidence in this trial. You must apply the law given to you in these instructions to the facts and in this way reach a fair and just verdict. You should decide the facts without prejudice, without fear, and without sympathy. You should decide this case based solely on the evidence presented and the law as I explain it to you. The evidence in the case. In deciding this case, you should consider only the evidence in the case. The evidence consists of testimony under oath of the witnesses, exhibits which have been admitted into evidence, facts of which I take judicial notice, and stipulations of certain facts. During the trial, the lawyers may make objections. The lawyers are supposed to object when they believe that certain evidence is not admissible. If I sustain an objection or exclude any evidence, you must not guess as to what the answer or evidence would have been. If I order that a question and answer be stricken from the record, you must not consider either the question or the answer as evidence. A judge is required to be neutral, and I am in fact neutral. If during this trial or at any point during these proceedings you believe that I have expressed or suggested an opinion as to the facts in my rulings, you should ignore that belief. It is up to you alone to decide the facts. In short, you should consider only the legally admissible evidence in deciding this case, that is, the testimony of the witnesses, the exhibits, stipulations, and facts of which I took judicial notice. We talked earlier that there will be a view in this case, and I'll give you an instruction on the view later, but the view is also evidence in the case, but you'll hear an instruction on that in a little bit. The indictments are not evidence. The fact that the defendant has been arrested and indicted is not evidence of guilt. The indictments are simply a way of giving the defendant notice of the charges. The indictments are a formal way of accusing the defendant of a crime in order to bring the defendant to trial. You must not consider the indictments as evidence of guilt. Multiple indictments, one defendant. Each of the indictments against the defendant constitutes a separate offense. You must consider each indictment separately and determine whether the state has proven the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The fact that you may find the defendant guilty or not guilty on one of the indictments should not influence your verdict with respect to the other indictments. The possible punishment the defendant may receive if you return a guilty verdict should not influence your decision. The duty of imposing sentence is solely for the judge. You should base your verdict only on the evidence and the law without considering the possible punishment. The presumption of innocence. As you were instructed during the general selection process, there is a presumption of innocence that applies and continues throughout this trial until the state convinces you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of each and every element of the offenses with which he has been charged. And the defendant has no obligation whatsoever to prove his innocence in this matter. And that includes the right not to testify if he so chooses. You are not allowed to draw any unfavorable, adverse, or negative inference if the defendant does not take the stand in this matter. The jury's recollection controls. You will hear the lawyers discuss the facts and the law in their opening statements and closing arguments to you. These statements and arguments are not evidence. Their purpose is to help you understand the evidence and the law. If the lawyers have stated the law differently from the law as I explain it to you in these instructions, then you must follow these instructions and
I'm just
ignore
turning
the
it down
statements
a little
of
to
the
talk about
lawyers.
him not being in court.
If the lawyers state the evidence differently from
He
how
was
you
being so
recall it,
cocky
then you
the other
should
day,
follow
right?
your own memory of what the evidence was.
Looking in the jurors' eyes and
Direct and
checking them
circumstantial
out.
evidence. There are two kinds of evidence.
He should
direct
have to
and
be here. I don't
circumstantial.
get that.
Direct evidence is
Thank you
direct
all for
proof of a
who have
fact,
joined. I
such as
appreciate
the
you all being here.
testimony or statement of a person about what the person saw, heard, or did. Circumstantial evidence is indirect evidence. That is, proof of a chain of facts from which you could find that another fact exists, although it has not been proved directly. For example, if you look outside and see water droplets falling from the sky, that is direct evidence that it's raining. But if you look out the window
I
at
hope
night
they're
and the
listening to all of
ground is
this.
dry,
It's
and
important.
again the next morning and the ground is wet, that is indirect or circumstantial evidence that it rained during the night. By circumstantial evidence, I simply mean that you may infer the ultimate fact from another fact shown. You should feel free to reach reasonable conclusions from proven facts. Conversely, you may not reach conclusions
Exactly,
based on
Teresa.
facts that have not been proved. In the rain example,
He was
wet
acting.
ground alone may support an inference that it rained during the night.
He was being so
But in the
cocky the
absence
other
of
day.
additional evidence,
I
it
can't
will
wait
not
for this.
necessarily support inferences about how much rain fell or for how long a period of time. You should consider both kinds of evidence. You are permitted to give equal weight to both, but it is for you to decide how much weight to give any evidence, whether it be direct or circumstantial. However, to be sufficient to establish guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, circumstantial evidence must exclude all other rational conclusions. This means that if from the circumstantial evidence it is rational to arrive at two conclusions, one consistent with guilt and one consistent with innocence, then you must choose the rational conclusion consistent with innocence. In determining whether all rational conclusions other than guilt have been excluded, you should not consider any item of circumstantial evidence in isolation. Rather, you should consider each item of circumstantial evidence in the context of all of the other evidence, which includes all other circumstantial evidence and direct evidence. You must understand, however, that this circumstantial evidence rule does not apply to direct evidence. If there is a conflict between two or more witnesses who offer direct evidence concerning certain facts, you should resolve the conflict. For example, suppose there are two eyewitnesses to a crime, and one testifies that the defendant committed the crime, and the other testifies that the defendant did not commit the crime.
This is important
This presents
information,
a
you guys.
situation where there is a conflict in direct evidence. In this situation, you, the jury, should resolve the conflict and must decide whether, based upon all of the evidence, the state has proved the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You should consider all of the direct and circumstantial evidence in the case, as well as any reasonable inferences you draw therefrom, in deciding whether the state has proved all of the elements of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. The credibility of witnesses. In deciding this case, you must decide the credibility of witnesses. That is, it is up to you to decide who to believe. If there is any conflict between the witnesses, then you must resolve the conflict. Simply because a witness has taken an oath to tell the truth does not mean that you have to accept the testimony as true. Use your common sense and judgment. Consider factors you use in deciding important issues in your everyday lives. For example, you may consider
Just
the
crazy to me.
following: the witness's attitude, behavior, and appearance on the stand, and the way the witness testifies. The witness's age, intelligence, and experience. The witness's opportunity and ability to see or hear the things about which the witness testifies. The accuracy of the witness's memory. Any motive of the witness not to tell the truth. Any interest that a witness has in the outcome of the case. any bias of the witness or friendship or animosity
It's almost
the
like
witness
he's
may
trying to
have
control
for or
things by
against
not
any
being
of
there.
the other people in the case.
Like, I'll show them
The
I'm not
consistency
going.
or inconsistency of the witness's testimony, whether or not what the witness says appears reasonable or unreasonable, whether what the witness says is consistent or inconsistent with the testimony of other witnesses or with statements the witness made at another time. In deciding which witness to believe and how much of their testimony to believe, you should consider both the direct and cross-examination of the witnesses.
Welcome, newcomers coming in.
If you believe that part of a witness's testimony is false, you may choose to distrust other parts also, but you are not required to do so. Inconsistencies and contradictions within a witness's testimony or between witnesses do not necessarily mean that you should disbelieve the witness. It is possible for honest people to witness the same event and see or hear things differently. You should evaluate inconsistencies and contradictions and determine whether they are important or unimportant. You need not believe any witness even though the testimony is uncontradicted. Nor are you required to accept testimony as true because some or even all of the witnesses agree with each other. You may find the testimony of one witness or of a few witnesses more persuasive than the testimony of a larger number. These principles apply to all witnesses, whether they are ordinary citizens, police officers, experts, or otherwise. In short, you should consider the testimony of each witness and give it the weight you think it deserves. The weight to be given to the evidence should be determined by the quality of the evidence, not the quantity. It is not the number of witnesses or the quantity of the evidence, but the quality of the evidence that is important. The judge decides what is admissible. Testimony, writing, objects, and other things presented during the trial are evidence only if the judge accepts them as evidence. Throughout the trial, I may rule on whether certain evidence was admissible or not admissible. These are legal decisions which do not concern you because only the judge is permitted to decide legal questions. I may make three types of legal decisions with regard to the evidence. First, I may stop some information from being presented at all. You are not to imagine what that information might have been had I allowed it to be presented. Second, I may rule that some information was not admissible after it was presented to you. You are to ignore this information and not use it as evidence. Finally, I may allow some information to be entered as evidence after hearing objections by one of the lawyers. You are not to give such evidence any special importance as a result of my ruling. It is not my duty, and I do not try to determine whether the evidence is important when I make my rulings. The burden of proof and reasonable doubt. Now, I've addressed what you should not consider and what you should consider in reaching a verdict. I'm now going to discuss with you how convinced one way or the other you
I
must
just
be.
noticed
And
that.
this is referred to as the burden of
Harlot
proof.
Oscara, is that you, Scarlet?
Under our
I've been calling you
constitutions,
Scarlet.
all
I want to make
defendants
sure I'm
in
not
criminal
wrong about
cases
that.
are
If I've been
presumed to
calling
be
you
innocent
Scarlet
until
incorrectly,
proven
let me
guilty
know.
beyond a reasonable doubt. The burden of proving guilt is entirely on the state. The defendant does not have to prove his innocence. As I told you earlier, the defendant enters the courtroom as an innocent person, and you must consider him to be an innocent person until the state convinces you beyond a reasonable doubt that he is guilty of every element of the alleged offense. If after all of the evidence and arguments you have a reasonable doubt as to the defendant having committed any one or more elements of the offense, then you must find him not guilty. Now, finally, ladies and gentlemen, a reasonable doubt is what the words would ordinarily imply. The use of the word reasonable means simply that the doubt must be reasonable rather than unreasonable. It must be a doubt based upon reason. It is not a frivolous or fanciful doubt, nor is it one that can easily be explained away. Rather, it is such a doubt based on reason as remains after consideration of all of the evidence that the state has offered against it. The test you must use is this. If you have a reasonable doubt as to whether the state has proven any one or more elements of the crime charged, you must find the defendant not guilty. However,
Let's just
if
hope
you
the
find
jury
the state
isn't
has
zoning
proven
out.
all of the elements of the charged offense
I
beyond
consider
a
us the
reasonable
public
doubt,
jurors,
you should find the
jurors of
defendant
public
guilty.
opinion.
With respect to the final instructions regarding the offenses, I will wait until the end of the trial and after closing arguments and discuss it with you at that time. So as I said, I will give you another set of instructions after closing arguments. At the end of this case, you will have all of these instructions with you in the deliberation room when it comes time to decide
I
your
wonder if
verdict.
she'll talk about whether
As I said to you
anything can
earlier,
be inferred
there's
by
a
him
form
not
of this
being there.
instruction that I'm about to give you. We call it the communication instruction that I'll give you. I've given you
I
some
would
of it before, and I'll continue to give it throughout the
I
trial.
would
Please
infer
listen
bad
very
things
carefully.
about him not being there.
Do not discuss
if
the
I
case at
could.
all, not with the other members of the jury or with anyone else, until jury deliberations start at the end of the trial after all of the evidence and final arguments have been presented. Please keep an open mind until you have heard all of the evidence in the case. During the course of trial,
I wish
please
all
take
of
care
you
to
two could
avoid
hear
any
these types of
contact with any
instructions.
persons involved in
Please
the case,
wait
the
until
lawyers,
you've
the
heard all the
witnesses, and the
evidence.
parties. So I remind you,
We
ladies and
should give these
gentlemen, as you
instructions
come in
to
and out of
all
the
of you
courthouse,
true
you
crime.
may see the lawyers or other people involved in the case. They have been instructed that they are not to communicate with you, so they are not being rude if they don't acknowledge your presence or smile at you or say hello as you may pass them in the hallways.
Don't take it personally.
But you must.
It's
They are
business.
required to avoid any contact with you, and
It's
you are
justice.
required to avoid any contact with them. So no contact with anyone involved in the case, please. Also, please be sure to avoid any television, radio, online, or newspaper coverage of this case. I anticipate that there will be media coverage of this case. As I indicated earlier, you know that there are cameras in the courtroom. They have been instructed that they are not to take pictures
For sure,
of the
Yorkie.
jurors in the case, but I expect that there will be media coverage. You are instructed that you must not read any articles or view any media coverage on television, online, or elsewhere. So avoid
Hey,
your
Jen
local
Lou.
papers. Have somebody pull the international section if you want, but don't watch any media coverage of the case, okay? You are instructed to turn off any notification or banners that come through your
That's a lot
smartphone,
harder for them
computers,
since they're local
smartwatches,
too.
or other devices.
You have to
okay?
be really disciplined.
Finally, do not conduct any research or investigation of your own. You must render your verdict based solely on the evidence submitted at trial. So don't look up the law. That will be given to you in the court's instructions. Don't drive by any locations. Don't look up any names. Don't look anybody up on social media. It is critically important that your verdict in this case is based exclusively on the evidence that's presented at trial. Our trial day will generally go from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We will also generally take a mid-morning and mid-afternoon break. I try to look at sort of natural break points in the case to determine when those breaks happen. But generally we'll have a mid-afternoon, mid-morning break, and we'll also have a lunch break.
I mean, who
The
walked
court has
in the
asked you to
court
put your
looking
cell
like
phones in
that?
a box in the jury
Hey,
deliberation
y'all,
room.
I'm here.
Please make sure they are silenced
Ready to
or
go.
turned off altogether. As I said
Fuck
to you, you will
y'all.
be permitted to check your
And then
phones
doesn't
when
even
you are
show
on
up.
break. However, you are not
Very
to look at any
Lana-like.
news reporting or media coverage of this case, as I have already told you. Additionally, you are not permitted to take notes of any kind, not on paper nor on your phones. The reason for this is that it is important that your recollection of the evidence is what controls. Sometimes if notes are taken, they can be given undue weight, and it's important that when it comes time to deliberate, you are using your individual and collective memories about the evidence, and one note or one written recollection doesn't control. You should also be aware that
Like,
there
who
will
comes
be
in
no
sticking their
transcript
tongue out at
available to
everybody
you when it comes time to deliberate. So although we have our excellent court monitors
like they
here,
own the
and
courtroom?
there's an audio recording that is not available to the jurors, and there will be no transcript. So your individual and collective recollection is what will control as you go into
And then makes a bitch move not to show up.
Therefore, please listen carefully to the evidence as it is presented. If during the course of this trial you have any questions or problems, you become thirsty or need anything else, just get the court officer's attention, either of our court officers or my attention, so that we can assist you. If at any time during the trial you cannot hear, please
Teresa,
raise
I
your
used to
hand so that I can
live
ask
there.
the
I used
witness
to
or the
work
lawyers
there
to speak up.
at
That goes,
Google. Good
as
luck.
well for any monitors. If you cannot see, please do let us know. It is important that you are viewing and listening to all of the evidence as it's presented.
He's not
So,
home
ladies and
trained,
gentlemen,
right,
it is
Finley?
now 20 of. I had indicated to you earlier that I thought we would go right into opening statements, but based on what I anticipate the length of the opening statements will be, I think that would hold your lunch off for quite a long time. So, after speaking with the lawyers, I think what we're going to do is we'll take an early lunch break.
Oh,
So
they're
we're going to
taking
break
an early
now.
lunch now.
Please come back at in 1 hour, so 20 to 1, and then we'll move directly into opening statements. So don't talk about the case, not with each other, not with anybody else. Don't look up any media. Don't do any independent research. And I will see you in an hour after lunch. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. All rise for the jurors.
All righty, so they are going to take off for a early lunch and then open. Yeah, I'm hungry too now, and it's not even my lunchtime. It's not even time for early lunch. Yeah, they won't be back for another hour. So I can sit here and shoot the shit with you. Maybe Alex or
seated?
somebody could come up who knows a lot more about this case.
Anything preliminary, or do you want to just come back at 12:30, or what would you like to do?
Just thinking, Your Honor, with regards to the arrangements for the bus. Trying to figure out what the time is and what we can do with them to, because we're shifting the times back, so maybe if we could approach on that.
Sure.
So I guess they're going to decide whether to do some preliminary matters now, or wait a little bit, whether they're going to take their lunch now or whatever. So if I'm trying to figure out whether I keep this stream going with us chatting in here the entire hour, or if I start another one. You'll come up, Alex? Okay, awesome. I will send you a link via Messenger. Hold on one moment. Hold on one moment. I'm going to mute the court feed. Maybe not. Okay, they're muting for us. By the way, how's my sound? Yeah, what is that package? I guess it's probably evidence. It'll be, I wonder if they're taking that evidence out for opening statements. It looks all, ready and staged. No, he's not there, William Eyelash, which is just crazy. Good. Thank you, Sparkles. It's just crazy that he's not there, that he walks in yesterday, as if he's just, he owns the place, right? I'm here, y'all bitches. And then he makes a bitch move and doesn't show up. Yeah, that's it. That is a huge package. I just wonder what is in that package, what we'll see. He seems to me like an incredibly toxic individual. I mean, just from what I've seen, what the allegations are. So when people like him do things like this to create this kind of a conversation, like, what is he not doing there? What does it not mean? Is it, is it his sign of rebellion or something? By the way, Alex, I sent you the link. Let me know if you're let me know if you're not able to access it for whatever reason. Alex will be my first ever panel guest on this show, and that's appropriate because Alex has been a very kind co-creator to me. Yeah, it is a sign of bitch assness. I mean, just make up your mind. Who are you going to be? Are you going to be, defiant and prove you didn't do anything? There you are. Hold on a moment. There you are.
Hey,
Hey, how's it
good
going?
to see you.
Good to
It's
see you.
going all right. How are you?
Good. I'm just playing with the formats. The if we start hearing stuff going on in the background, it's because I still have the court feed up and it's not muted. So, what do you
Okay.
think so far? What do you think about him not showing up?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know what to think, Lynn. I'm emotionally kind of thrown as soon as like you started. I knew that we were probably starting today, but just seeing it like my heart started racing, my stomach got kind of turned, and I got chills all over at first. First of all, I want to say thank you for streaming this. I'm really glad that you are, because it gives us a good place, like a safe place to all hang out and chat about it and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate that. But with him not showing up, it really threw me for a loop, especially with this appearance of confidence from yesterday.
Yeah,
What do you think?
same here. It's, to me, it's the juxtaposition, and it's such
Yeah.
a sign of a I'm not qualified to say whether he's a narcissist, but the traits are definitely there when especially I keep seeing that clip where he is, at the sentencing for his gun charge, right? And he's
Oh
like,
yeah.
please don't consider, when you're thinking about the sentence, don't consider the offensive charges against me. I am innocent. And he is just proclaiming his innocence, and he's so arrogant about it.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that that type of personality he's a walking enigma, right? Because if you're so confident, then why are you gonna bitch ass into your cell, right? On the
Yeah.
first day of the freaking trial.
Well, I mean, that clip that you're talking about, I forgot about it, and I saw it again yesterday too, and it had my head spinning, because so we know that Kayla has came out and she has some pretty disgusting claims about what happened, and she goes
Yeah.
into quite a lot of detail. Well, his lawyers, they didn't. There was a local news article, and I've went over it before, but I couldn't find it yesterday in a quick search because of all the new press that's out about the trial. But I will try to find it. But in the article, his attorneys basically make the statement that Kayla knows that power tools weren't used because she had a much bigger role in the disposing of Harmony. They almost admitted it to a degree. It was very bizarre. So
Yeah.
now I'm wondering what's he gonna do, and what's his game plan? Like, because these offensive claims against him. Well, I remember when, he was getting pulled over, those clips of him where they're asking about Harmony. He doesn't want to talk about it. It's quite obvious that he's hiding something there. But I don't
Yeah.
know.
He's like, he shuts down when it's convenient for him. He opens up when it's convenient for him.
Yes.
He's defiant.
Well,
Here, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, like, how do you feel about Kayla? Do you trust her? Do you feel like she probably left
Not at
do
all.
you feel like it's possible? Okay. I don't either. I think we might be getting a one-sided. I'm sure some of it's true, but I think she probably would leave things out that make her look a certain way. So
Right.
I
And
don't
that's
know.
why it's so important for the jury to listen to the judge's instructions about credibility, because you have to take a person's credibility on the stand along with their testimony. I mean, isn't this a woman? And I just have to let everybody know, I am by far not an expert on this case. I haven't followed it as long or as closely as a lot of people, so I could get some things wrong. And if I do, you are welcome to correct me. My feelings will not be hurt. But if I understand correctly, Kayla was right there with him, right? When
Oh, yeah.
she's the one who's testifying to all these horrible things that he did. She sat there and allowed it to happen. She didn't report the child missing. She might have even been more involved than she's admitting. And I almost
Yeah.
feel like she's coming, her coming forward is just to save her ass. Wasn't she also collecting checks with Adam? Wasn't Harmony on her EBT, which is the,
Yes.
child welfare, basically the government paycheck that you get for having child, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So he's guilty on a lot of measures, but that's the thing about these cases, is that they do have to sometimes depend on the testimony of people who have conspired, right? And
Right.
so then the jury just has to weigh, is this person coming across credible, and does what they are saying match up with the evidence, right?
Right.
So,
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, as far as with Kayla, okay, so first of all, she lied multiple times. She didn't actually tell what happened until several times in. She even got in trouble for lying. And then several interviews in, she comes out with this version of events where you're right. She was in the car. She claims that she was in the car when these 3 sets of 3 blows, several sets of 3 or 4 blows are on Harmony from Adam. It's even sick to say what happened, but she sits in the front seat and she claims that Adam looks at her and says, I think I really hurt her this time. She also claims that Harmony made a noise that was different from, it was an odd noise. She started making a weird noise. No
Right.
one checked on it. They go through the drive-through and get food, and she claims in her proffer that I didn't look at her, but I handed the food, like I stuck my arm back and felt for her leg and set the food on her blanket. And this is a blanket, mind you, Lynn, that they had in the car and on Harmony to cover the bruises on her
Right.
because she was bruised up. And she also admitted to smacking Harmony in the back of the head in her proffer. There's quite a lot of things that she outwardly admits to that I don't know. I don't trust her. And another thing with the witnesses, with the, like you're saying, the credibility of it, I don't think that she's a credible witness, but unfortunately, she's the only witness we have for that event. But also his
Right.
defense, the 2 witnesses that they have, one is like a random woman from like a citizen, and then the other person is a inmate. So one
Right.
of the defense, I wonder, I'm very curious about that.
And that's probably why they have to, if I'm the lawyer, and I'm not a lawyer, so, I can't speak too authoritatively on this, but when you look at the slate of witnesses for the state, when you have, the girlfriend, wife, whatever, the stepmother that was there during the commission of the crime and may have participated in it and benefited from it, testifying, and then you also have an inmate, and inmates also tend to sometimes not be credible as well because they're trying to get something out of testifying, right? So
Yes.
so then you have to think, well, I need other witnesses who don't have credibility issues but can actually bring something to the case. So I guess that's what this random woman you're talking about is, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So it'll be, and I'm sure they're going to have, usually trials start out with, they bring up the officer who took in the first report, right? Took in the call of the, reporting whoever responded to the call of the missing person. So you usually get that testimony, and then they start to bring in, various experts and other witnesses to testify about a timeline, place a timeline on the record. So it'll be interesting to see if we can hear from the opening statements any indication of what they plan to do in terms of witnesses other than those 3 that we know about. Yeah.
I agree.
I'm gonna pull up. I just grabbed. Oops. Yeah, sorry. I just grabbed this. I think it's the right one. I think it's the right clip where he talks about.
Okay.
So, hold on. So here we go.
Probably won't believe me when I tell you that I didn't wake up one morning and choose to become an addict. I don't want to be an addict. And I will spend my time in prison utilizing it to the best of my ability to change things about myself. I could have had a meaningful life, and I blew that opportunity through drugs. But I loved my daughter unconditionally, and I did not kill her.
Whoa.
And the judge.
Man, he's twitchy, man.
Wow.
He's a I need to watch that again because I haven't actually seen that. He's so he is just seething with anger.
Mhm.
Just
Oh yeah, he is.
and he's trying to
It would
hide
be
it too.
it would be so intimidating, wouldn't it though, like with him looking at you with that anger because, Kayla also testified in the weapons trial when he did this and he just sat there glaring and I don't know. I think based on statements that he's made that I've personally been aware of, like not too in the recent last couple months, he claims that there's a lot more to the story and that, she's lied. So it'll be interesting to see how he testify. Do you think he will?
That's a good question. It's hard to tell with this guy because he's an enigma. Like we said, he walked into court as if he owned the court yesterday, thinking, trying to show everybody how confident he is. He's so confident he can stick his tongue out, right? He's so confident.
Right.
He can puff out his chest. He's so confident. He's so confident that he is okay with wearing shackles in court in front of the jury, right? He's so confident. So you would think he's also so confident that he would probably try to testify, right? In his defense.
Right.
But then today he cowards out and doesn't even show up. So, I could see him. A lot of times these people will come out and act like they got it all together, everything's worked out, and then you see by their actions that it is the complete opposite. And so I almost feel like this guy, he's just flailing at every chance to try to seem like he's innocent, but he's not acting like he is.
Well, part of me wonders if he didn't come today because they had such a long day yesterday and there's not going to be any witnesses or anything. So I'll be curious to see if he comes tomorrow, when we start getting witnesses.
Right. I just can't remember. I honestly, personally, and it may be just my kind of Swiss cheese memory. I can't remember when a defendant hasn't shown up for court for the first day. Can you think of one?
Well, Letitia, she tried not showing up a lot of times. Now they made her for the trial, but like they even had a plan to put her in a holding cell because she kept not trying to show up. And I know there was another one. I think when did Lori Vallow sit out? Didn't she sit out only a couple days of hers or something like that? Wasn't the first day, like you said? I don't know if I can recall of any like immediately that did it. But
since her trial wasn't streamed, I didn't, follow every second of it to know whether he did or. Yeah, even Darrell Brooks. Look at Leo. Even Darrell Brooks showed up. Yeah, I agree, Jen Lou. It's not a good look for him. This is the thing with people like him, right? They put off this really big persona, like they know themselves and they know the law and they know everybody, but they have such a lack of awareness of how they come across that they have no idea that, putting up that kind of a stance and then not showing up is a bitch move and it makes you look guilty,
Right.
And he's not even gonna, and they just have a really hard time acknowledging it. And I keep going, I go back to the example of a freaking Lana who's like, I'm gonna sue you, I'm gonna sue you, and I'm gonna sue you, and I'm gonna sue you, and then doesn't fucking show up to most of her court cases. You know,
Right. Or like with Chris Watts, like I always felt like his ego was in the way and he would never fully admit to what he did and what happened. And I think that sometimes it's their ego, like, because they know they're screwed. So they're like, well, I don't want to face, they can't face it. Their
right?
just ego is too big with some of these people. And a lot of these same people we're talking about are that they all have this like very, I don't want to say narcissistic. I'm not, I know that word gets overused, but it is. It's almost like this narcissistic quality in them.
Yeah, yeah. I've coined a word, control assist, because that's their aim. People who act like this, their aim is to control things they can't control, right?
Control assist.
Control
Like
assist. Yeah.
narcissist.
Well, because we aren't qualified to say somebody's a narcissist, but I can look
Right.
at these actions and say, by doing that, you're trying to control us, right? So I even
Oh, yeah.
feel like him not showing up for court is him exerting some sort of that's the only control he has, really, is not being somewhere or being somewhere, or the way he looks when he's there. And he chooses to wear the shackles almost like he's a martyr. It's like he wants to show the jurors that he's been incarcerated wrongfully or something like that, and he's still gonna beat these charges because he's so right. That's the sense I get from this guy.
Right. Oh, I could see that. I was going to ask you what you thought about the shackles and leg brace situation. So
I thought that
interesting.
was weird too. Most of the time, even Darrell Brooks didn't want his shackles on at first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he, sometimes some of these people are so warped, so broken in the head, and they see things through such a broken lens that it's hard to understand their actions. And you have to almost climb into a broken head like that and figure out, what could they be thinking?
Right.
What
Yes.
could they be thinking? So I'm going to say I want shackles in front of the juror. It'll be interesting to see if he at some points complains about the shackles and then says, you guys made me look like a convict, it's all your fault. Like if things he said Jen Lou says he says the leg braces are uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got from it too.
Right. And that could very well be, but coming from a mouth like that, you just never know what the real reason is.
Right.
You
You
know,
really don't.
I mean, he's been in jail or prison for how long now on these gun charges?
A couple years. I think he was arrested in 2021.
Right. And before that, he had
Oh,
he had
he
done
had
time.
done time.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
He
he understands what it's like to be uncomfortable. That's what the
Right.
entire jail system is and prison system is meant to do, is you are uncomfortable now. He's used to being uncomfortable. So him saying, "Oh, these shackles."
That's such a good point. Oh my God, that is such a good point because life is not comfortable in there. And
Yeah.
yeah, he had a history long before he ever got Harmony. I'm surprised, that's a big part of this.
Yeah.
How he even got her in the first place.
Yeah.
There's just so much to it. It's really frustrating, but yeah.
My understanding of that story is, yeah, he's a career criminal and he acts like one, right? And my understanding of that story is that he was able to get custody of Harmony because her mother was a drug addict at the time, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
she kind of I don't know the timeline of events, like they split up and then the mother just stopped being a mother, so he was able to get the mother just kind of Harmony was taken away from her and Adam was able to get custody, right? Is that
right? Yeah. And before Harmony was taken, there's so much, but I refreshed my memory recently. They lived in a shelter together, Harmony and her mom. And I think they tried to work with mom a little bit for a while. And then, she was finally taken. She was also in a foster home. And then he was able to get her. But he already had a pretty extensive criminal history. I mean, really violent crimes. So it's just shocking. And also he didn't know her. I think by the time he took her home, I mean, when he first started trying to get her, he was just starting his relationship with her. And I heard Sleuth's mom yesterday say it, and I don't want to repeat it, but it was like just over 10 times that he had seen her when he took her home, or, it wasn't a lot. He didn't have like this close relationship with her.
Right. I mean, I have to watch this clip of him again. Just watch his, because I hadn't seen
Yes.
this one before. I was looking for a different clip, but I'm glad I pulled this one up with Harlot O'Scara. I was calling Harlot O'Scara Scarlet before. I feel bad. Anyway,
I love
DCYF.
that name.
Yeah, it's funny. DCYF in New Hampshire hadn't even responded to Mass's home study request yet. They gave, oh my God, such an incredible failure. So
Yeah.
it's cases, there, what's so unfortunate? Like, we just watched the Crumbly trial, right? And Jennifer Crumbly was found guilty. And, really it's because of all the entire cacophony of events of how her and her husband contributed, but her specifically contributed to enabling him to do that, but also not recognizing the symptoms that he could do that, that it could reasonably happen. And it takes, cases like that to get on the national scale, get national awareness to see that change needs to take place in at least how people are seeing things like this. And I feel like that's a big issue with DCS, right?
Yeah.
And, child services, and how there just needs to be mass systemic overhaul in how children protective services are carried out. And unfortunately, it's a state by state thing. So you're not going to be able to make one sweeping change, right? It has to be like a slow, methodical change that comes. And unfortunately, what has to happen sometimes is something horrible has to happen, so egregious, something that shocks the conscience so much, where you see that contribution of that system, that things have to change. And it feels like those things have happened many, 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 many times, but they haven't done anything yet. You know what I mean?
Yep, but you're exactly right. And I've even watched, there's a creator called Down the Rabbit Hole News, and she used to be a CPS worker, and she was kind of talking about how, there are little changes that are made all the time, but like you said, it's different state to state, so it's really hard to implement changes in the whole system, and it just makes things difficult. Not only that, there's so many kids in the system, there's not enough workers, I don't know, it's almost impossible. But Lynn, almost every case that we talk about that involves kids, there is a failure along the way in the system. And I mean, whether it's Summer Wells' family, CPS visited the day before she went missing. We know they were in and out. It's in every case, it's just, I don't
In
know.
a lot of these kids' cases, I mean, that's what comes out. What is it going to take?
Yeah.
And people get, even when big, major, horrible things happen that everybody's paying attention to, that fear, that anger only lasts so long, and then people move on to the next thing,
Yep. You're exactly right.
and because our information economy moves so quickly, right?
Yep.
So it's really, but I want to watch this clip again, because I hadn't seen it before, and man, this guy is seething, raging with anger.
Yes, let's watch it. Okay.
Yeah.
Probably won't believe me when I tell you that I didn't wake up one morning and choose to become an addict. I don't want to be an addict. And I'll spend my time in prison utilizing it to the best of my ability to change things about myself, I could have had a meaningful life, and I blew that opportunity through drugs. But I loved my daughter unconditionally, and I did not kill her.
I mean, he's saying all that, he's using the right words, but he looks like a freak saying it. Don't you think? I mean,
Yeah, I think that you can feel the anger. I always feel like you can just feel it coming off of him. Like when you just look at him in the eyes, the way he glares, the way he speaks.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Very intense.
It, does anyone know, do you know, have the foster parents, because I noticed somebody talked about the foster parents in chat, and that they're really the only people who didn't fail Harmony.
Yeah, so they have her brother Jameson, and that they are part of the reason that Crystal filed the police report. They pushed her really to do that. And
Mhm.
they've done a ton of interviews and stuff. Like, I know it's been a long time since I've seen any of them, but they've been on the news and stuff. I know that we could find some things with them to pull up, but yeah, they were a huge part in pushing her to even file her missing. You know, it was a long time. She last saw her around Easter of 2019. She wasn't reported missing until
2 years
November of
later, right?
2021. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I think he wasn't arrested until early 2022, actually. I said 2021. I think it was 2022. But yeah, it was 2021 November that she was finally reported missing. I
Right.
mean,
2 years. Stars Align says, anyone know what he claims happened to Harmony? Do you know what, has he put up any kind of defense yet that we know of?
no, no, except this. His attorneys in one of their motions in the local news, like I said, I can find the article and I'll send it to you once I get down and the trial starts. I'll try to find it and send it to you.
Mhm.
But
Thank you.
they said that Kayla Kayla had made these claims about the power tools and lie and all this stuff, and they said Kayla was a much bigger role in what played a much bigger role in what happened, and
Uh-huh.
she knows some of those things she said weren't true. They did give like a very murky statement, but not really. Besides that, and their statement was just confusing as can be because it almost was like they are admitting that Harmony was disposed of. I'll have to find it to quote it exactly. But other than that, no, we only know what Kayla put out. And so we got to see the arrest affidavit after the weapons trial. They unsealed the arrest affidavit for the second-degree murder charges. And that
Mhm.
had quite a lot of information. And that was, we found out about the cooler and her being up in the ceiling, and the tote bag, and the pie company that he worked for, and all that stuff. But then recently, they, his attorneys, or maybe it was the state, they included a transcript of her proffer interview, one of her proffer interviews. So we
Mhm.
got a little bit more of what she claimed, which was basically about him threatening her if she ever told, and how paranoid he had gotten and how angry he had gotten. And we also heard in that his family members had offered him money for Harmony. They want, and some things like that. But her story of what happened is just one of the most disgusting things I think I've ever heard, ever.
Yeah. Completely. Absolutely. No question about it. Yeah, it sounds to me like if he is trying to indicate that she had more of a role, he's going to play it off on her, and he's going to maybe he'll try to say that he he came back and she was dead. Like he left her with Kayla, and
Yeah.
he was dead or something like
That's
that.
what one of my friends was telling me last night. She's like, I really believe he's going to admit to like helping dispose of it or whatever, abuse of a corpse, those charges, but act like he came home to it, which in Kayla's own statements, she admits that she would smack Harmony in the head and stuff like that.
Right. Oh
Like
my
she plays it off like it was nothing, but yeah, she does admit it in there.
Right. So they'll probably bring in all kinds of evidence to show other times when he had abused her leading up to that, if there is any evidence.
Yeah, and there is some, but his attorneys were asking for all of it to be kept out.
Right.
They were even at the end going to split, because there is he's also charged with assault on Harmony because she had a black eye, and there is a witness, which is his uncle Kevin, to some of that. But they
Right.
were asking a lot of that to be kept out, but they have said that some of it can't be kept out because obviously it has to do with the second degree murder charge. The abuse of her is tied in, it's intrinsically entwined or something, is how they worded that.
Right.
But some of it they will keep out, including like his history of abuse against Harmony's mother. That was one thing that, some of that will be kept out. So,
Gosh, that's it. I guess there are good legal reasons to keep evidence like that out, but man, I mean, if you want to show a pattern of behavior with domestic violence, sometimes you have to show that they do these things to many people, not just the one person that's coming forward or the one person that's dead. Yeah, so there's a little bit of conversation about you should have gone to the game, Chris, and I'm going to answer that question because honestly, it's a interesting storyline in the Chris Watts case. Is Chris Watts has said that if he didn't go to a Rockies game, he might not have killed Shanann and his children. And what he did instead of going to the game was going out to dinner. What was the name of the place again? God,
the something dog.
Yes.
I can't remember. Yes.
The game Chris would know. Oh man, it used to be just locked into my brain during the Chris Watts Island days. But they all went out to eat. And the lazy dog, that's what it is. The lazy dog. So
there we go.
he went out, he lied. He went to the game he went out and hung out with Nicole Kessinger and her friends. And that was his mistress. And there's a lot of speculation about what actually happened when they went out instead of going to the game. But he told Shanann he went to the game, and he went out to dinner by himself afterward because she noticed a charge on the credit card from the lazy dog that added up to 2 meals, not 1 meal, right? And like a dummy, he charged on his regular credit card that sends notifications to Shanann. Boom, I just charged something, right? Or maybe she was looking at it because she was already suspecting he was having an affair. But anyway.
Right. I almost called it the soggy dog, Lynn. I was thinking the soggy dog. I couldn't think of it. The lazy dog.
Man, the soggy dog. That's funny. Well, that's an appetizing restaurant name. The soggy dog.
Not at all. Not even a little bit. That's funny. Well, you know what, Lynn? I just want to say again that I'm so glad that you're streaming this because it just, I enjoy your commentary anyways, but also it gives us a place to chat about it. And I know the reason I want to mention it again is because I know how these cases affect you. I know how sensitive you are. I'm sensitive too, but I know just for instance, like Lori Vallow and some of the cases that I just know how they affect you. And you know what? We all need to take care of our mental health while we're watching this together. I was talking about that a little bit yesterday, but these are the times when these cases just get to me the most, when we're hearing like all these details and,
and like that's and thank you for saying that. And that's why I was so grateful that you and Jen Liu were covering the Lori Vallow trial, because like you said, that I had been following that case since literally it was announced that those kids were missing, right? So when you follow along every footstep, and I had done several videos about it, I could not picture myself live talking about it without breaking down every 2 seconds. I mean, literally, I was I was ugly crying in my room watching the details of this unfold every day. It's so
No.
horrible. And I know a lot of people will be feeling this way about Harmony. I feel like I will probably be sitting here ugly crying during this case, but at least we can ugly cry together and,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
not be mean to each other in the process. Right. So,
Yeah, and thank you. And yeah, at least we do it together. And plus, you always have you try to keep respect for the victims and stuff like that. That's why I say it gives us like a safe place to chat. And I don't know. It's tough to do. It's tough to also 8 hours a day or whatever you have to. It's
yeah,
tough to stream a trial.
it
It
is.
just is. So thank
It
you.
is. It is. But honestly, sometimes I feel like with these cases, it's like I almost sometimes feel like I owe a duty to that victim. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I
Yeah.
owe a duty to that victim to be here for them because they didn't fucking deserve this. And I owe a duty to other victims of cases like these that, the ones that we don't ever learn about because there's so many that we never learn about, you know?
Oh, oh my God, that brings up something I want to ask you about. Okay, which I agree because I feel the same way, even with like getting things right. It's like you want to get things right because you owe it, even the most gruesome details of what happened, because you feel like you owe it to the victim to do that because the truth needs to be told and in a way that is respectful to them. But that brings me to this Paramount Plus special.
Oh,
Um,
girl. Oh, girl.
have
Yeah.
you watched it?
No, I don't have Paramount Plus. I know that the first episode was put on YouTube and I haven't I watched it I watched it as another chat was watching it.
Okay.
But what did
Well,
you want to say about it?
okay. So I watched episode 1. I started episode 2, and just message me later, and I'll let you use my login if you want to watch
Oh,
the other
perfect.
two.
Thank you.
Uh, But oh my God, it was
You know what?
for
I just want
one.
to tell I just want to tell the audience that's listening what we're talking about, just in case they
Okay.
aren't aware. So a new Paramount Plus series has just come out. It's just a 3-part series. It's not like a full-on, series about cyber sleuths. And it features people in the true crime community, mostly streamers, some, others who just create videos, who consider themselves cyber sleuths. And at first, when these people who were involved in it came out and said, "Oh, I'm involved in this, I'm involved in this," it's like they were excited and bragging about it. But it's turning out that
Mhm.
they're really being exposed for not knowing in many cases what the fuck they're talking about. And
Yeah.
it turns on them and so what Alex and I are talking about is that this series just came out and there a few people who are being featured in it are Bullhorn Betty, um, and Chronicles of Olivia and Jonathan Lee Riches or JLR, and I'm missing a few. There's a few TikTokers there, and of course, Lana in all her glory. I now remember her saying, "Oh, I was asked to be part of that, but hey, no way, they ain't getting my content without paying me," or something like that. So she
Oh my
pretended that
gosh.
she turned them down. But anyway, what are your thoughts on it?
Okay, so I've only watched episode 1 and part of 2, and I saw that Melissa and Queen Bella had both said that in the chat too. Okay, so and you said you've seen part of episode 1. Tess says that on 3, my friend Tess said on episode 3, like they go hard at talking about lawsuits and past charges and all this stuff of some of these streamers. But in
Oh,
episode 1, yeah, that's what, so I can't wait to see that. But I know part 1 it was embarrassing and infuriating. And it's pretty like Bullhorn Betty was one of the most respectful. I felt like one of the TikTokers, she kept cussing and like, I don't know, she just gave me they seem very selfish and silly. We have this author or this crime writer that goes on and she's like, these we can't conflate this with journalism because, and then another person that works for CBS, she's like, we have ethics. We can't put out false stories because of backlash. Like these people, they grow more when they put out false stories. And
Right.
Olivia talks about bringing on WSU Kim, that
Yes.
lady. It's just embarrassing. And also it, it makes us all kind of look bad in a way. And
Yep.
it makes us look so selfish. It's like, this is not about you. Olivia is a beautiful girl. She's great at her editing skills and stuff like that. But when you watch this, it almost makes it seem like it's, it's not all about you. I don't know. I didn't like it. It gave me just, I don't know. It's embarrassing, Lynn. And I can't wait for us all to finish it. I can't wait to see episode 3 and for you guys to see it. And I want to talk to you guys about it, but
I do plan to do a video about this because, obvious. Yeah, exactly, Melissa Jade. I mean, I'm shocked that the person who says, I am Idaho 4, I got that clipped. I
yeah.
haven't loaded it up yet. Wasn't in this thing, which was focused on how these people are have created just complete mishigas around the Idaho 4 case. And
Yeah.
it's so to me, it's honestly, I have a little bit of, I'm also embarrassed. I echo what you are saying about being thoroughly embarrassed. They make the rest of us who care about true crime, who care about reporting on facts, who care about not exploiting victims most of all, and exploiting the families of the victims most of all. It makes the rest of us look really bad. But I think they did try to differentiate, them as these are the sleuth types that, that make things up. And then there's a whole other, category of true crime that doesn't do that type of thing. How did they not get NC? Well, she's a band creator, so but I mean, and I also want to cover it from the perspective of, I have managed crews like that for years and years and years and years. Like I was in
Right.
a lot of times when you see people being interviewed for those series, I was like in the room behind the camera watching,
Right.
with them. Right. So I know I have a very intimate knowledge of, not intimate. That's not a good way to say it. It's not an intimate knowledge. I have a very long and historied working knowledge of how these crews work, how the media works, and how they will approach people. They will approach people who don't have a lot of experience with the media. Someone like Bullhorn Betty, they will see that this person is I consider her a blowhard, man. I mean, she's like, I'm Bullhorn Betty, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
right? So they approach someone like her and say, oh yeah, we're going to do this documentary and we want to feature you, but they don't say what the outcome is going to be. And they won't promise what the outcome is going to be, but they still make it seem like, oh yeah, we'll they make you feel important, right? They make you feel important. And they make you feel like, oh, wow, I'm going to be a star and all of that type of stuff. And then you sit there literally for okay, I was on a Netflix documentary, okay? They interviewed me for 4 hours and I'm in that thing for like 2 seconds, you guys. Literally like 2 seconds. And I'm totally okay with that. I'm okay with that. I didn't need to be in that thing. I was more behind the scenes on it. But so you think that you've got all of your, great sound bites out. You think you're going to, all these wonderful things that you've said are going to be in there. And they literally pick up only that thing that helps them tell their narrative.
Right. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. That's scary to me. That is so scary. Like you sit there for 4 hours and you don't know which 2 seconds they're going to clip,
No.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's why you have to have much more discipline about, what you say on camera in those those rooms. And that's why, it would take at least a day or two of hours of preparation. Like even for like Steve Jobs, I would sit in a room with him and be like, they're going to ask you this. How are you going to answer that? No, I think you should say this. I don't think you should say that. And it's not to lie. It's just to present the accurate information in the best light possible. But a lot of these people aren't prepared for that. And Bullhorn, I saw a stream where Bullhorn Betty was saying, "Oh my God!" And I had 15 people in my house with all these cameras and these lights, and I had to turn off the air conditioning, like so that there and I'm like, oh my God, welcome to like a day in the life of of a public figure. That's what it's like to be a public figure. And but the thing of it is that you have no control of the outcome. So for you to go out there and promote it like it's going to
Oh
be
God.
your grand debut, and then for it to come out like making you look like an asshole, the media gets to do that, especially when they're not paying you. And none of these
Right.
people
Oh
are
my
paid, I
God.
guarantee it.
That is just embarrassing because, yeah, I hear that episode 3 goes pretty hard at some of that. And so when they're showing Betty, that room she films in, like with the big printer thing behind her and stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're in that room from the backside talking to her and Olivia. But there are just so many little clips that they take, little sound bites of what they've said, or like little jokes that they've cracked, and that make them look very self-centered. Well, I don't know,
Yeah.
makes Olivia look more self-centered. I'm serious when I tell you that Betty is the one who seems the most respectful in a lot of parts of this. It's shocking because at least she's like, well, I would never put Kim on my platform. She's like, just because I don't know if it's accurate. She says I'd get 4 days of hate for putting out or
Yeah.
something like that, for putting out the inaccuracies. But yeah. Oh my God.
So, well, a lot of
Shocking.
times what they'll do is they have 3 parts in which to kind of do a story arc on each person that they're featuring. So they'll start out by showing kind of the reasonable, rational person, and then they surprise you by starting to show how nuts that person is. And I'm not sure that they're going to be doing that with Bullhorn Betty, but
Right.
that could be the direction that they're going in. And people who are wondering when are they coming back, I've been monitoring very closely. I've been looking real closely to see when if they're coming back into the courtroom. They're not back. They're supposed to be back at 9. Well, that's 9:40 my time. So 12:40 their time, 12:40. So, and sometimes even at that time, they don't always turn the cameras on right away. So we might still have to be,
Right.
shooting some shit before that.
It's
But anyway, what were you gonna say?
we've had lots of good conversation. Like we've made the time go by fast. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah,
yeah.
and you're welcome to come up anytime during any break. While I'm streaming, I'm sure, I'll be pulling up clips and stuff to watch during breaks, and try to have keep the conversation going. But
Right. Well, I'll be here for sure taking my notes, and we'll just see. I wonder if I'm thinking it'll just be opening statements today. What do you think?
yeah, probably. I mean, it seems like it obviously depends on how long each opening statement is. This is, it appears that there's a lot to this case in terms of the evidence and the things that they want to present. They even have those big packages sitting in the middle of the room. Did you see that?
I heard you reference it. I was trying to get on the panel, so I didn't see it. But I heard you reference it. Like, I wonder if that's evidence or something.
It
So
looks
I
like
wonder
it's
if
probably evidence because it's all bagged up and taped up,
oh God,
looking like
for
evidence.
their
Ugh.
for their opening statement. It just, I know, it just turns my stomach. Like we've been waiting on this for a long time. I'm so happy that it's here. Because it's really a pain in the butt for when COVID happened. For one, COVID is a big reason that some of these kids did not
Exactly.
get reported missing. Yeah. And then also it put the court process off.
Yep.
So some of these cases that we're finally getting to, I'm so thankful, but also, it just makes me sick with nerves, like, because I know it's going to be awful.
Man, COVID fucked everything up. Everything. So much. I mean, I think it changed
Yes.
everybody's lives in one way, shape, or form, you know? Not to go off
Yes.
on that tangent, but yeah, but not the least of which is the court system and these cases like the Vallow case, right? Vallow Daybell. I
Yep.
mean, you know, they get that when all their court processes started was really when COVID hit, and it just delayed and delayed and delayed. So I think what I'm going to do right now is show one more clip of Adam about Adam.
Okay. Well, I can jump back in the chat and let you show that, and then I'm sure they'll be back to it, and I'll be listening, and I'll be here. And if you need somebody to come up at another time, then I'll definitely do it. So yeah, just let me know.
Thank you
Okay.
very much for being here, and I will see you in the chat.
Okay. Thank you so much again for doing this, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay, thank you. All right. So let me bring this up, and don't worry, I will go right to Court TV when it starts. Hold on.
Montgomery. You remember this case. He's charged with second-degree murder,
Hey,
tampering
crime
with witnesses,
sleuthing.
falsifying physical evidence, and abuse of a corpse. The corpse
Hey, shit.
is not just any, it's this beautiful 5-year-old little Harmony Montgomery that's broken the hearts of all of our viewers who have monitored this case. And now, finally, he will be going to trial. Let's get you caught up on this case. And to do that, here's some background of the case against Adam Montgomery.
I want you to know that I never stopped looking for you, and I won't stop fighting until I find you.
Harmony Montgomery disappeared in 2019. For 2 years, nobody reported her missing until November of 2021, when her mother, who had lost custody of Harmony while dealing with substance abuse, called police.
I've been begging for any type of answer since 2019.
Harmony's father, Adam Montgomery, and his wife, Kayla, had custody of Harmony. They told investigators that they
Look how whacked out Kayla looks there. She could barely open her eyes in that mugshot. She can barely even keep her eyes open. And Adam talked about, allowing his life to get, derailed by drugs and stuff. Well, same with Kayla, obviously.
Montgomery and his wife, Kayla, had custody of Harmony. They told investigators that they left Harmony with her mother after they were evicted from their home. Eventually, in January of 2022, police had enough evidence of physical.
That's another super heartbreaking thing about this case, is at the time that Harmony died and, went missing, they were living in a car. They were living in a car because they had just been evicted. So they already had, this little girl's life was already, kind of in a shambles, living with basically these two drug addicts. And now they're living in a car. And I see people talking about he's not in court today. They have not given like a valid reason. They just said he chose not to be in court today, which is just, we've been talking about, is just so weird.
Abuse against Adam Montgomery. He was arrested for assault of his daughter. He pled not guilty. Adam's wife, Kayla, was arrested as well for perjury. Both said they had no idea where Harmony was.
Well, there's some discrepancies between what you're telling us and what other people are telling us.
Like, this isn't gonna stop.
No, I know it's not.
So
So
either get on the bus now or get run over.
well, I got nothing else to say.
And that's been his stance. I got nothing to say. I got nothing else to say. I got nothing to say. He was pulled over. He said, I got nothing to say. And then, yesterday he strutted in the court like he owned it. He stuck his tongue out, I guess at the cameras. I'm not sure. And then today he's like, no, I can't be there. I can't be there. What the, I mean,
Investigators also uncovered evidence that Adam Montgomery had stolen guns. He was slapped with multiple charges, including theft and being an armed career criminal. Then in October of 2022, he was charged with Harmony's murder.
5-year-old Harmony was murdered in Manchester in early December of 2019. Mr. Montgomery has been charged with the following: second-degree murder for recklessly causing the death of Harmony Montgomery by repeatedly striking Harmony in the head with a closed fist.
According to the probable cause statement, Kayla Montgomery, Adam's wife, told investigators they had been evicted and were living in their car when, quote, Adam was extremely upset that Harmony was not saying when she needed to go to the bathroom and was having accidents in the car. While Adam was...
I was considering whether or not to stream this trial. When this piece of fact came up when I was doing the research on this case, I was like, okay, I have to cover this trial. He was pissed at her because she was wetting her pants. She's 5 fucking years old. So I just love these parents that expect their, incredibly underage children, their very small minor children, to just be perfect individuals and not cause them any sort of burden ever whatsoever. You peed your pants, I'm gonna beat you to death. I mean, it's just insane to me.
Driving, he turned his body and delivered sets of 3 to 4 blows to Harmony's face and head on 3 separate occasions over a course of a few minutes. After the final blow, Adam said, I think I really hurt her this time.
And so we have to go basically on that testimony of Kayla, who is also, convicted of things that are, based on not telling the truth. She was charged on perjury. Yeah, and exactly, Dumplings Granny. She had no access to a bathroom. They were homeless. They were living in a car. And now he has to clean up her pee. Well, dude, and that's what drugs will do to you. That's what severe drug addiction will do to you, is make you not give a crap about anybody else, their needs, including your own child. It's just so sad to me. Okay, I'm still looking at Court TV has not come back on yet, so none of you are missing anything. I just want you to know I'm going to keep playing this.
Kayla said they eventually discovered Harmony was no longer breathing, and Adam stuffed her body in a duffel bag. Despite numerous searches, Harmony's body has never been found. Adam Montgomery, her father, denies that he killed her.
Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
In June of 2023, a jury found Montgomery guilty of the weapons charges, and at his sentencing, he spoke to the judge asking that she not let the pending murder charges impact her decision.
The only consideration that I ask you this morning is for you not to consider anything as it relates to the case regarding my daughter Harmony. I did not kill my daughter Harmony, and I look forward to my upcoming trial to refute those offensive claims.
And I look forward to my upcoming trial to refute those offensive claims. All right. Well, we'll just see how offensive they really are. Right?
Adam Montgomery was sentenced to at least 30 years and up to 60 years in prison. Now, Harmony's family and all those who have followed her case are waiting for justice.
I want to make sure we honor her in every way possible.
All right, that case again. Tuesday, jury selection.
All right, I'm back to the Court TV feed now so that we will all see when they come back. Those are just absolutely grotesque facts to me. So not only were they homeless, she had no access to a bathroom. She's 5 years old. My understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was that she's special needs. And special needs usually just means there are certain parts of your brain that have not matured. Oh, we have a little bit of court action. Have not matured in line with your biological age. So maybe, yeah, and maybe and she was 5, so she would have been in kindergarten. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Okay, they're going to have a sidebar. Speaking of sidebar, that is the name of my membership, and in all honesty, I had chosen it just as like a court reference, like, oh, we're going to be the sidebar here. But it became kind of a running joke in another trial hearing that I showed, where a pro se litigant kept asking for a sidebar where a sidebar was not warranted. So it became a running joke. But anyway, here's the link to the sidebar membership for anybody who wants to join. So they're still in their sidebar. So you got this homeless family. The parents are on drugs, and how many kids did they have? They had Kayla, and then they had another child. Kayla and Adam had another child, right? A baby brother. And so they're living in this car. Oh, she was blind in one eye. Okay. She's not otherwise not special needs. So that's helpful. Thank you, Harlot. I know you're close to there and you know a lot of facts of the case too. So she must have been what is an IEP? Maybe I should know that, but I don't know what an IEP is. So then these horrible things allege that Kayla, individual education plan. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, thank you. I've never been in school administration, so gotcha. Independent and right. Well, but was she even being taken to school? That's a whole other question, right? Whole other question is, was she even being brought to school? Would she have been brought to school for her IEP, for herself to get that plan put in place by these drug addicts who had no home? Yeah. So there they are. They have no real shelter. They don't have access to a bathroom. A little 5-year-old girl is wetting herself, which is very normal for 5-year-old children. And you have to, and apparently, as far as Kayla's testimony is concerned, he turns around and socks her several times in the face, and that results in her death. But you have to believe that was far from the first time that he did that to her. People who hello, Johnny, people who kill somebody with their own hand, as is alleged with Adam, by punching them multiple times, is very rare. It's very rarely, at least that I've seen, the first time that they've ever done such a thing. 2 of my kids had the same eye condition. It's genetic. Amblyopia strabismus, not blind per se, but legally blind in one eye, like seeing the E on the chart is hard. Yeah, gotcha. We're seeing the court in real time. I'm making sure that wait. Yeah. We're they're still this lovely guard here. He's going to get a lot of camera time if that's where they decide to point the he's like, "Oh my god." No. So Harmony was never found. That's one of the facts of the case. So as I was kind of talking about what happened here, so that allegedly happened. She allegedly died as a result of that. They disposed of her body, and she has never been found. So that might be the reason that he doesn't have higher charges, is because they don't have a body. They still do not have a body. So, in my view, it takes a pretty sophisticated criminal, career criminal to be able to dispose of a body with absolutely no evidence. I mean, there's no evidence of her body, and they haven't found it. And no one reported this little girl missing for 2 years. She was not, just think about that. Holidays, Christmases, birthdays. What? And no one was saying, "Happy birthday, Montgomery." I'm sorry, "Happy birthday, Harmony." Can I speak to Harmony, my grandchild, my niece, my whatever, my cousin? No one's saying, "Where's my cousin for Christmas?" Oh. So she goes missing, and she's finally she's finally reported missing. I believe it's by her biological mother, who finally got some sort of treatment and started wondering and started wondering where she was, and then that started to get the ball rolling. The only evidence, trauma punks, that they have about how she died was through the testimony of Adam's current wife. I don't know if they're divorced now. Somebody can correct me. There are people in the chat, and Alex, who I just had up here on panel earlier, who know a lot more details about these people in the case. But his wife, Kayla, testified about what happened, gave testimony in a proffer about what happened. And she's the one who outlined that, she had been wetting herself in the car. And at one point he turned around and just wailed on her with his fist. And then Kayla testifies about hearing an odd about him, Adam, saying, "I think I might have really hurt her this time." I know, right, Chris? Such a beautiful name. So Kayla's testimony is that he said, "I think I might have really hurt her this time." And then they went to a Burger King drive-thru for food, and they put a blanket over her legs to hide her bruises. And then Kayla didn't even look at her when she passed her food back to her. She just passed it back to her. And that's why they didn't notice until later that she was not responsive and something was really wrong. And Kayla also testifies to hearing an odd sound. Okay, they're finally coming back to the table. They've had their sidebar. We'll see what happens now. I hope Court TV turns on the audio. And you see there in the middle of the room, There's a table and there's a big package sitting there. And I think they have risen for the jury to come in, if I'm not mistaken. We still see no Adam in the room, which is highly weird. We've been talking about, why does somebody who walks in like he's already got this case beat, like he knows he's going to be declared innocent and not guilty. Yeah, I hope they say something too. I hope in the opening statements they address that, because it is very weird. If I was on the jury and I was allowed to have a negative inference about him not being there, I would. But they do say you can't take a negative, or can you take a negative inference about somebody declaring the fifth? No, you're not supposed to be able to take a negative inference from that. That package is about the size of that cooler. I wonder if they have it. Interesting. Is there a cooler? I guess we'll see. I guess we will see. They still appear to be waiting for. I'm going to look on Twitter. The artist, otherwise known, the artist formerly known as Twitter. That's what I'm going to start calling it now. The artist formerly known as Twitter, to see if there's anything coming out of the reports there. Not seeing anything. Let's see. Yeah, it's hard not to. I mean, okay. In case you people, in case nobody in chat knows or anyone watching knows, I worked at Twitter for a very short time. And I worked at a few other companies. Thanks, Johnny. I worked at a few other tech companies. Twitter, when Elon Musk took it over, I can't even describe. I already knew. I was like, okay, Elon Musk has taken it over. Oh, something's terribly wrong. And now he's rebranded it to X. That is such a rebranding. Now, the people are being filed out. What is going on? What is happening? That first two rows of the courtroom, of the gallery, were taken out. Were those family members? Well, and not everybody is leaving. And the other people in the courtroom are kind of looking like, hey, what's going on? I'm looking at this. I don't see anything on Twitter about this. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. There isn't really that I see yet a like TikTok on this from anybody in the room. How odd. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that would be family, since they're they were sitting in the front row. I'm assuming that the people we're looking at, they're those like three people in the third pew might be press, because they have a computer open. And hopefully they would be posting like live updates onto Twitter or something, but I'm not really seeing them show up yet. I'm going to look at WMUR and see if there's any information. No. Very, very, very curious. Oh, and they didn't even tell us what's going on in their tent. They put the camera up as if there's another break going on. My goodness gracious. Do you think that do you think the opening by prosecution is going to be hard for them, maybe with reference to the cooler? You know, it's a good thought. It's possible. Maybe they were told, "Hey, look, these opening statements we need to go hard on this guy. This is going to be brutal, and we're going to be showing some things that are incredibly upsetting. So it's your choice whether to, do this or not." It also could be, or to stay here or not for these opening statements. It also could be as simple as, well, not everybody's ready yet. We still need to do this, this, and that. People are still eating something. There's just some sort of scheduling glitch. And they said, okay, well, this is happening. You have time to, go to the restroom or grab something to eat if you haven't yet. It could be as simple as that. You never know. Teacup Kraken. Looked it up. She was blind in one eye and diagnosed with a visual disability. She was receiving early intervention services and special education services until they moved here to Wisconsin, to New Hampshire. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And you'll find that I never mind being corrected if I give wrong information. I would much rather give correct information than be I don't mind looking dumb, right? Okay, so Alex just kindly sent me an article that might be helpful for us to read while we're waiting for them to come back. And this is from WMUR. The jury has been seated for the Adam Montgomery trial. They were sworn in and given instructions by the judge before a lunch break was called. Opening statements are expected to start. And it keeps glitching out on me because it wants me to click on the ad. Are expected to start after the break. Yeah, that's really all. I mean, that's really all the updates I've seen. So they're giving live updates there, like sorry, y'all. I'm just looking for a little bit more information here. Just a moment. Yes, Jen Lou. I'd rather appear dumb than intentionally obtuse. Man, that might be a thought of a day. You might have just, you might be getting a credit for a thought of the day, Jen Lou, on Checkmate Humanity, because that's really good. So here's some updates from WMUR. And these updates started about 45 minutes ago. The jury is 14 men and 14 women and 3 men, are youngish and are all white. Probably goes along with the demographics there. The prosecution, and then at 11:11 a.m. their time, the prosecution has 45 minutes for its opening statement, so 45 minutes, and plans to use all of it. The defense team also has 45 minutes, although it's unclear if they will use the full amount of time. Harmony's mother, Crystal, is not in the courtroom. She is on the witness list. Interesting. The state is preparing television screens for the jury, and a large brown paper-wrapped object sits on a table near the bench. Yep, we've seen that. Jurors are here and now being sworn in. Manchester Police Chief is also here. But, I noticed, hold on just a sec. Yeah. I think that same station WMUR is giving is doing regular let's see, I think it's here. I'm looking at their Twitter. Maybe I should just go to the website because that's where they're doing the updates. Because I'm just wondering if they've like changed, if something has changed and why those people went out. Ah! So I'm looking on the website right now where all these updates are being, I'm on the WMUR website. I don't want to show it on the screen here because then it would boot off the court feed, and I want to make sure that's sitting up there. But the last update is that jurors are instructed to not take notes, consume media, and are ordered to turn off all notification on their phones. They're to do no independent research. The phones are surrendered into a box in the jury room. Lawyers and those connected to the case instructed not to interact with the jury at all outside of court. They are breaking for lunch. So, and that was, I'm a little confused about, so they already did their break for lunch that we just talked all the way through. Stars Line says, my golden doodle knocked my 20-month-old grandbaby over the other day, and I literally thought about taking her to the doctor. Right, exactly. A grown man. Absolutely. I have a golden doodle too, Stars Align. He's my favorite person. Just kidding. Oh my gosh. They're live now. Let me see here. I mean, I'm looking at this. We're looking at the court feed. Yeah. So another part of today's plan for the jury, I believe, was taking a trip to to a few different sites. It's called a jury view, which I thought they're live now on Law and Crime. Thank you. Let me look and see here. Let me see.
Seated. Council approach.
Oh, here we are. Okay. They're okay. They're okay. They're back. And they're sidebarring again. Sidebar. Stars Align, Biomom was also a drug addict. It's just a horrible set of circumstances all around. And so that Harmony was taken away from her bio mother because she was a drug addict. She went into the system. Adam, who really didn't even have much interest or relationship with Harmony, was able to get custody of her. And it feels to me as though he got custody of that girl so that he would get a paycheck. That's what it feels to me. Hello, Green Eyes.
All rise for the jurors, please.
All right. Things might actually be, yeah, exactly, T-Tep Kraken. Things might actually be starting now, y'all. Things might actually be starting. I mean,
All right, for the jury.
Judge Judy would be like, come on. Come on. We get, time is money. Time is money. And remember, this guy who thinks he's so amazing just didn't even show up. Can't
You
face
may be seated.
his accusers. All right, let's listen.
All right, sorry for the delay, ladies and gentlemen. One thing I think you will learn as you go through this process is sometimes things go exactly as we plan, and sometimes they do not. Right now, they are not going exactly as we had previously planned. So I apologize for the delay. And there are a lot of moving parts in a trial, so sometimes we need to switch things up. So originally, I had said that we were going to come in and do opening statements. We're going to do something a little different than that. As I said, we're going to be going on a view today. So prior to a view, the lawyers will give you what's called a preview statement to give you some information about what they want you to look at and what they anticipate that you will see on the view. We're going to do that first. So I'm going to give you an instruction regarding the view. Then the state and the defense will give you their preview statements. Okay. And then we will wait for the bus to come. And when everybody's ready, we'll get on the bus and we'll go for the view. Then depending on what time it is after that and other circumstances, we'll determine whether opening statements will be this afternoon after the view or whether they'll be tomorrow. Okay. So listen carefully to this instruction. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to begin this case with a view. We will be traveling to several locations within the city of Manchester to observe certain areas you will be hearing testimony about. The purpose of the view is to make the testimony you will hear more understandable. If you have the opportunity to look at a scene, the testimony may make more sense to you. Your obligation on the view is to look as carefully as you can and to remember what you see as well as you can. You may not ask questions. You may not take any notes or measurements. You should look carefully at what the lawyers will be pointing out to you. What you see on the view is evidence in this case. Please stay as close together as possible so that you will all be viewing the scene from approximately the same perspective. If you cannot hear or see, please call that to my attention or to the attention of one of our court officers. After the view is completed, you may not revisit the scenes on your own during trial. Also, you may not engage in any discussion among yourselves or with anyone else concerning what you see at the view. As you know, you are not to talk with each other or with anyone else about the case until the end of the trial when you are conducting your deliberations. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, counsel will have the opportunity to make their preview statements to you concerning what they expect you will be seeing on the view.
Every time she says the view, I think of the show The View. They should call it something different in these trials. Oh, no. You have to go to the microphone, sir.
What we're going to do, and first of all, since it's my first opportunity to talk to you as the jury, Big J, as opposed to Little J, let me thank you again for your time that you're going to be putting forward not only today but throughout the trial. It's very important, both to society, to the government, to the citizens, and it was very, very much appreciated.
the first part of your job, for the most part, is going to be taking place in this room. The vast majority of it dealing with the witnesses and the exhibits that you see. But as you just heard from Judge Messer, another part is going to be the view. This is evidence, what you're going to see today. It is going to be work on the view. You're going to have to walk around in 2 different locations, and the rest of them will require you to look out the windows of a bus to be able to take into account the neighborhoods that you were in. And I'm going to explain every place that we're going to go in just a moment, and then defense counsel will also have that same opportunity. Together, we are going to see where this happened. You're going to get to see the same places, the same locations in person that you are later on going to see and hear evidence at trial. And you've already heard, again, Judge Messer's instruction. You should consider today's view to be like evidence. In a few minutes, we are going to get on a bus, maybe about now, and we're going to see a couple different locations in Manchester. In some ways, it's going to be the beginning of a journey that you will likely never forget. This is also the last journey that Harmony Montgomery took while she was alive, and where her body went afterwards. It's a journey that's into the actions of the defendant on that day and the days forward. And we're going to drive by places where Harmony was first assaulted, where she was later killed, or she was later consolidated and crushed. And then finally, the different other locations of where the defendant had her in the city. What you are going to see today is part of the evidence. Some of the locations that we're going to drive by, we are just going to pass by in the bus for a minute, and the bus is going to pull over to the side of the road. So you have an opportunity to look at that location, take in the surroundings. And on 2 of the locations, we will physically get out. One will be a parking lot, and the other one will be an intersection. We will not be going into any residences. Later on, you're going to hear testimony about different homes. We may be driving by an apartment complex today, but we will not be going inside in the actual rooms where Harmony was, or where Harmony later was kept. So we will be outside for the 2 times that we get out of the bus. So before we do that, I want to kind of start at the beginning. The first place that we're going to go to, and this is Miss Johnson, forget my art skills, high school. We're going to start at the courthouse. And the first place that we're going to go to is we're going to go down past Elm Street. Definitely not to scale. We're going to come across Merrimack, and we're going to go up here on Market Street. And at that point, we're going to pull the bus over to the side of the road, and you're going to be able to look out, and I would say look out the right-hand side of the bus to the area of 20 Market Street. That's the location of the methadone clinic, where the defendant took Harmony that morning with the rest of the family inside a 2010 gray Chrysler Sebring. When you're there, I want you to be able to take into account just the outside of the building and also look at the neighborhood. I want you to see the number of other businesses that are nearby, the number of other cars that are nearby, the number of the amount of foot traffic that may be there while we're there. You're going to hear in opening arguments that it was at that first location outside the methadone clinic that the defendant came out from getting his medication, got into the car, and understood that Harmony had had an accident, saying words to the effect of, "Really, Harmony, again?"
Objection, Your Honor. Approach.
Uh-oh, we already have objections because he started to go into the narrative of the case. That's probably their objection, but I'm not a lawyer, so what do I know? But he was starting to say that he came out of the methadone clinic. They're going to be going to the methadone clinic, and he came out of the methadone clinic. I mean, the facts just get worse and worse, right? He comes out of the methadone clinic, discovers that she had an accident. He says, "Not again," and then he was stopped from continuing on that narrative. And it'll be interesting to see if they allow us to come on this field trip. They may not allow us to come in real time, but I would imagine that they'll video it kind of like they did with the with Murdaugh. They didn't go, "Oh, thank you for joining Super," I almost said Super Sock, Solo Sock, just for joining and becoming a member
Ladies and
sidebar.
gentlemen, that objection is neither is neither sustained or withheld. The state will clarify. Go ahead.
When we're at that location, later on, you're going to hear testimony that at that location, when Adam came out from Gavin's location, your testimony that he sensed and smelled that after the bathroom accident, and that's where the assaults began of striking. That's why it's important for you to look around, to see what else and who else is there, and to know what that area looks like. From there, we're going to then come back onto Elm Street, probably do a loop around, go north on Elm, then we're going to go up to Webster Street at the top of Elm, and that's right over where you get past where you go on the bridge, the big Brady Sullivan Tower there. We're going to take Webster Street out, and here we're going to go out on Daniel Webster Highway. And there's a Burger King. When we get to the Burger King again, we won't be getting out of the bus. We'll be staying inside, and you'll have a chance to look at that parking lot. What the state is asking you to do is to pay close attention during that drive. How many stoplights roughly are we going through? What are the road conditions like? How long does it take to get there? You're going to hear testimony later on about that same drive. You're going to hear testimony how during that drive, the defendant's assaults continued. And he continued to hit Harmony as they stopped at red lights, as they stopped at stop signs. That's why you need to pay close attention during that drive. And we're going to go out to that location. After we've had a minute or two to sit in the bus there at Burger King, you've had a chance to see the traffic flow, see what cars are like. At that time, we're then going to turn around. We're going to come back down Webster, continue north on Elm, and then we're going to cut over to an area on West River Drive, approximately 59 West River Drive. And there, we're going to make our first stop where we get out of the buses. 59 West River Drive is one of the street locations for Colonial Village Apartments. It's right up on you can see poorly drawn river. It's right on the backside there. We're going to be pulling in between those buildings and going to a very large back parking lot that's behind there. This is where your testimony that the defendant lived in his car after they had been evicted from their Guilford Street home, and where the defendant kept Harmony and the rest of his family after they left Burger King, after he continued to hit her, and drove back there to eat his food while Harmony was moaning. You're going to hear testimony that that's where he used his drugs while Harmony died. When you're there, I'm asking you to notice the number of apartment buildings that are nearby. Look at the number of cars that are in the parking lot, how big that parking lot is. I'm also going to ask you to take notice in that back parking lot area, look towards the tree line. Look at the very back row, closest to the river, where different cars can park. Notice all of that while you're there. It's going to be more than 1 or 2 minutes. So you can get out, you can certainly walk around, take your time to really look in that area and look at the different details that are there. Also look up at the side of the building. I'd like you to know whether or not you see lights on the side of the building that illuminate that parking lot, whether there are street lights that illuminate that parking lot. So do that while you're there. Once we're done, we'll get back on the bus and we're going to drive back towards the city, back on West River Road, back to Elm, and then south to the intersection with Webster. The buses are going to pull over on the side here, and we're going to get back out again. You'll hear testimony that it was here that the defendant's Gray Sebring died in the intersection. That it was here that where, with his family, the car stopped working, and that it was here just before he needed to get a tow. You'll hear how he went to the back seat, found that Harmony was no longer alive. I want you to look very closely around that intersection. Look at the traffic going through that intersection, the number of people that were available at that intersection. We're also going to hear the testimony that at that time, when he realized that she was dead, that when you look at the different businesses around, I want you to remember that when later on you're hearing testimony, how his actions was to take Harmony and to stuff her in a duffel bag. You'll also hear later a trial from a tow truck driver, and you'll hear about a gas station on the corner. So while we're in the intersection, and we're not going to be standing in the middle of the intersection, obviously, we're going to be standing on the sidewalk. But while you're there and you can move around, take note of how far away that gas station is and the short distance that the tow truck driver had to bring the car. And once we've spent enough time considering all of these, then we're going to be going to another address. You're going to hear a testimony about a lot of different addresses where the defendant brought Harmony's body afterwards. We're not going to be going to the first two addresses. That one that involves, you'll hear involves a deck, another one that involves a red cooler. We're not going to be here. We're not going to be driving by one on Lake Avenue as well that you'll hear testimony later on about where he stored Harmony in the ceiling. Where we're going to go is 644 Union Street. So from this intersection, we'll come back onto the buses, onto Webster, come over to Union Street, and head south. And the intersection of 644 Union Street is right at the intersection of Union and Orange. So Orange is the cross street. You're going to see two buildings. We're going to be stopping right outside here, 644 Main. Testimony that you will hear later on involves also a parking lot that's general in the back. But here we're not going to be getting off the buses. You're not going to have to go inside. We're going to ask you to again look out the right-hand side of the buses and the size of the building. While you're there, we're going to ask you to please take a look at the number of apartments that are there, the number of neighbors that the defendant would have had based upon looking at those apartments. Look at the traffic, look at the lighting, look at the neighborhood. Later on, you're going to hear more testimony about that apartment and what took place in that apartment. Again, we will not be getting out the buses. You do not have to go in that apartment. When we're done at Union Street, the buses will pull away. We'll come down to Bridge, back onto Elm, back south to Merrimack, and then back to the courthouse. I'm going to ask you to look at one last thing on this drive. As we come back to the intersection of Merrimack Street and Elm, roughly here, compared to how I'm pointing right now, down at that intersection, right across the street from each other, there's the Thirsty Moose Tap House, which is right on Merrimack. Right across the street from that is a Chase Bank right now. When we drive back down Elm, and then we take that left-hand turn to come up Merrimack Street to come back to the courthouse, I'm going to ask you to look out the right-hand bus of the window. We're not going to be slowing down there. It's Elm Street, a little too busy. But I do want you to look outside that Chase Bank. In the winter of 2020, you will hear testimony that that was not a bank, that that was the Portland Pie Company, pizza shop, that that was where the defendant worked. And you're going to also hear testimony that that was where, on one occasion, he ordered his wife to bring a CMC bag containing Harmony's body and stored it inside a freezer, seen by other witnesses. So when you hear those witnesses and they talk about Portland Pie Company, we're going to be driving by that location. Again, it's a bank now. It's not a pizza place anymore. But understand where that location is to be able to better understand the testimony that you're going to hear throughout the rest of this. And let me stress again, what you see on this view is going to be evidence. The locations we're stopping at: the Habit methadone plant, the Burger King up on Daniel Webster Highway, coming back to Colonial Village where we'll get out, to the intersection of Elm and Webster where we will also get out, the drive by 644 Union Street, and then back to Elm and the drive by what was Portland Pie Company before we come back to the courthouse. This will be your only opportunity, as you heard from the court, to look at these places in person until the end of this trial. So take your time. If you need more time, please let the court staff know. We will stay longer in the parking lot. We will stay longer at the intersection. We have great deputies and bailiffs who will allow you to be able to explore the space in a safe manner, so that you're not going to feel like you've got traffic right on top of you or anything like that. So do please take your time. But when you listen to the testimony from the different witnesses, these are 5 of the key locations that you're going to hear. So it's important that you know what they look like in person before you hear that testimony. Based upon that, again, after you hear this and if you see all of the evidence of this case, we'll ask you to return a verdict that is just. But I would also ask you if you would please do also pay close attention to defense counsel's comments about the view, because again, the more observations that you can make on today's view, the better it will be for you to understand the testimony you see later on. And it's a one-only shot. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is where the trial really begins for you, and you literally step into it. You step onto the bus, you go to places. These places are exhibits of your mind. These places in your mind you apply to everything else that you hear, see, and consider in this case. The state said that this was the last journey that Harmony made. This is where the dispute starts. This is not the journey that Harmony made.
Interesting,
This
Finley.
will be the journey that we make today. And when we leave here and we go to Merrimack Street, that's a clinic. And it is a clinic that you'll hear testimony that Adam and Kayla frequented all the time, or quite a bit. And that when you're there, I want you to look. We can't recreate what was happening on particular days or particular weeks, who might have been coming and going at what time. So you actually can only look around and see the exposure. What is the parking there? What can you see? What is exposed? What is hidden? And then apply the evidence that you hear about events that may have occurred there, and consider, could this have happened? Put your mind to the testimony and apply it. This is what I saw. This is what I remember. This is what the witness is saying. It is your evidence, but it's evidence in the case. Then you'll go from the clinic to Burger King. And at Burger King, that's really very, very important to look at that entire layout. Again, we can't recreate the amount of traffic that was on a particular day or a week. We can't recreate any of that stuff. But you look at the parking. I want you specifically to look at how that drive-through works out when you make the order and then you pay the cashier and then you get your food. Take that into consideration. Take the time to think about a route through the drive-through. What is exposed? What is hidden? Who can see what from what angle? Think about the cashier. Think about all of the stuff around the drive-through. And actually, when you're there and stop, think about that from the time somebody pulls into the parking area. And again, you will be applying that to somebody else's testimony. And then you'll be thinking and applying that. Does this work? Does this not work? What's going on here? It is your evidence. From there, you heard that we're going to Colonial Village. And that is a place that you're getting out. So you will take the time. Traffic's going to be different from testimony that you hear about, but you want to look. What is exposed? What is hidden? from particular places, looking at the building. What can you see? What can't you see? We're going to direct you to particular places and areas and say, take a look and consider from this perspective, something that pictures can never quite do. And you got to hold it in your mind and again, apply it to testimony as it comes in. This is an exhibit throughout the trial, not just for this afternoon. From the Colonial, you will go to Elm and Webster, which is a place that you're going to get out. And that is really critical on traffic because, again, it can't be recreated. But there is going to be testimony about traffic, about reaction to traffic. There's a car that's broken down there, and about what people did about the car, about what traffic was like because the car was broken down. And you want to, again, look, what's exposed, what is hidden, and apply your exhibit in your head to the testimony that comes here at trial. Then Fit Shelter is the next place. And you're going to hear about information that happened inside Fit Shelter. So you won't have that sort of same perspective of what's exposed and what's not exposed because you won't actually see that part. And there's testimony about Fit Shelter that is very disturbing, but you still need to go there so that you put it in place about the type of place that it is. And
Objection? I'm sorry, I think there's an objection.
Okay, so the objection was just lobbed as she started to talk about a shelter where she said some disturbing details will come out. And then there was an objection. So I wonder, maybe they were objecting to her carrying a narrative too. Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know what we mean when we talk about any lane in chat, that was from the Depp versus Heard trial.
messing up my words, Union Avenue. Sorry. You will not be going into Union Avenue, but some very disturbing things occurred at Union Avenue. So
she
you
gave
want
wrong
to
facts.
hold this into your head. Think about the building. Think about the location. Remember Union Avenue, even though you can't go into it, and I think you'll be very happy that you don't go into it. All of this is an exhibit inside of your head, and keep
Fair enough,
the
trauma
names a
punks.
little bit better than I did. I'm so sorry about that. But the location is the same, and this is the journey that we are taking. And at the end from Union Avenue, you're going to come back here, and as they say, pass by the corner at Merrimack and Elm. Keep that in mind. I also want you to keep in mind
I'd be so
the
confused if I was on the jury at this
from the two. Distance in this case is a little bit less important, but still something to keep in mind as a person testifies about traveling from place to place, about how long does it take, the traffic lights, what is a delay. And I did forget, at each of those traffic lights, I want you to look around again, just as you're going through the traffic lights, what's exposed, what is hidden. You're going to be on streets. Assume that everything on the street is exposed. Look around on the sidewalks and the areas around it as well. It's a difficult thing. Again, you're not taking notes. And you're going to have to remember this as you apply it to all of the testimony in this case. All of these locations are important, not necessarily for the reasons that the state said. There is a dispute going on here, but there is no dispute that all these locations are very, very important. and we can only ask you to pay attention as best you can. When we get there, we'll just remind you of perspective and specific areas to look at. I believe that we'll be going behind you to make sure that the bus stops long enough for you to absorb all of the areas before you go to the next one, until you step out and actually walk around, starting at Colonial Village. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the preview statements. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send you back into the jury deliberation room. This is a good time to use the restroom, have a drink of water. I think we've got a little bit of time before the bus arrives. We will let you know when the bus arrives, and you'll be escorted by the court officers. I will be on the bus with you, as well as some of the court staff. The lawyers will be going separately. So just be patient. As soon as the bus is ready for us and all of our business here is concluded, we will go ahead and get on the bus and begin the view. All right. The reminder about not talking about the case with each other or with anyone else, or doing any independent research, make sure you don't do that. Okay. All rise for the jurors, please.
I'm just still listening in to see if anything else interesting happens. So yes, they are going to do opening statements after this bus viewing. And it's already 1:40 there. I wonder did anyone hear? I didn't hear them say how long this bus viewing will take. It's got to take at least an hour and a half to 2 hours for them to load everybody up, get everybody going. I mean, wrangling a bunch of strangers like that, going to the same place is like wrangling cats, unless you're very, very, very organized. They're supposed to be today after they come back from the viewing, Johnny. So the order of events is that they are now supposed to be waiting for the bus to come. Looks like they're bringing in that monitor, probably for witnesses that are going to be appearing from other places, or maybe, obviously, probably for evidence presentation. But yes, it's supposed to be. They're supposed to be now waiting for the bus, and then they'll go on this journey that they just took. There are several stops. I don't know how long they're going to stop at each stop, but it's got to take at least 2 hours for them to go through all that. And it's almost 2:00 there. So they won't be coming back to court until at least like 3:30. And the state and the defense each have 45 minutes for their opening statements. They'll probably try. Yeah, it's not a party bus. It's definitely not a party bus. They'll probably try to get the opening statements done today, because that was part of the plan, right? They had planned for opening statements, then a viewing, and they just switched up the order of things. So they'll probably try to get that done. So what I'm going to do here is end this stream, and then I'll schedule another placeholder stream for in a couple of hours, and I'll just keep watching to see if it starts up again, and I'll go live when court starts again. I do have to run out and run about a half hour worth of errands, so hopefully nothing happens while I have to go out and run my errands. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens, if they're able to come back and do the opening statements. But I did promise something to my new member. I don't know if Solo Sock is still here, but Solo Sock, listen up, because this clip is just for you. It's not pointed out you. It's just a funny clip for you.
Have an objection? Shut up. I have a right to object, I believe, Your Honor.
You have the right to get held in contempt of court. And that's what's going to happen if you don't shut up.
I, you know, as I look around for little quotes from Clip, there are so many judges who will just not take people's shit, right? And I streamed 14 hours of court hearing testimony where that judge did not take order of her of her courtroom. And I'm going to show this clip again right here because this was a pro se litigant. The judge is telling a pro se litigant, shut up. Hold on.
I have an objection.
Shut up.
I have a right to object, I believe, Your Honor.
You have the right to get held in contempt of court. And that's what's going to happen if you don't shut up.
No, it's not that I believe that judges should be able to just say shut up from the bench. But man, there are so many times I wish that a judge would have had the balls to say shut up in other cases. So anyway, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate Alex coming up and helping explain some of this stuff while we're wait, let me see if there's something happening. They are talking, but we can't hear it. That's not fair.
You admit to each and every element of the offense of falsifying physical evidence and abuse of corpse. Is that okay? And did you speak with
They're
your
talking
lawyers
to Adam.
in detail about that?
Yes, I did.
And have you reviewed the opening statement in which they will tell that to the jurors?
Yes, I did.
They're talking to Adam.
Do you wish for them to acknowledge your guilt on both of those charges, falsifying physical evidence and abuse of corpse?
Yes.
And do you understand that it would be the state's obligation to prove each and every element of those offenses beyond a reasonable doubt before the jury could find you guilty? Do you understand that?
Yes.
And that by agreeing to allow them to acknowledge this in opening statements, the jurors can find you guilty of those two offenses, relying on that information. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay, and that is what you wish to do?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you have any further question about that?
No, I do not.
All right. Anything further that the state requests?
As further the state request, we assume that the court would take that into account and make a decision whether or not he's making a knowing, intelligent, and voluntary waiver, essentially proving his facts and proceeding this way, which the court will do.
Okay. So anything you want to add, Attorney Smith?
Not on that issue.
Okay. So, Mr. Montgomery, having heard from you that you've discussed this with your lawyers, that you've reviewed the opening statements, the draft of the opening statement, that you acknowledge that you understand that the burden of proof is on the state to prove each of those offenses beyond a reasonable doubt, and that understanding that it is your desire for them to proceed with that strategy, the court does find that this is a knowing, intelligent, and voluntary waiver of your rights and will allow them to proceed on that basis. Okay?
Oh, yep.
Okay. So while I have you, today you did refuse transport, so I want to talk to you about tomorrow. As we discussed with you this morning, you can't change your mind midway through the day, but you can inform the court if you wish to come tomorrow. And what I would like to do, and each day thereafter. So you can come and we will send a transport for you. That is your absolute right. But as I explained to you this morning, it's also your right to waive your presence and for us to proceed in your absence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to instruct the sheriff's office and the Department of Corrections that someone will ask you tomorrow morning, do you wish to come to court today? We will have transport available to you if you want to come, but I am not inclined to send a car up there to pick you up only to have you refuse. So do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any concern about that procedure?
No, I do not.
Okay. So it is our intention to have someone ask you tomorrow morning whether or not you wish to come. And whenever they come to ask you that question, they're going to need an answer from you so that we have sufficient time to make sure that we get you down here in order for us to start the trial in a timely manner. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I believe your counsel will be speaking to you later, at some point later today?
Not today.
Oh, not
We
today.
can't.
Okay.
24-hour notice.
Okay. So that's going to be the procedure for tomorrow morning and each day thereafter of this trial, unless and until the court makes a different order on that. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there anything further from the state while Mr. Montgomery is present?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Montgomery, you're free to go now. I appreciate that that you are speaking with us when we need to speak with you, because we are keeping the jurors waiting when we do this.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. You're all set.
Wow.
All right. Counsel, we will
Wait, let's just listen
wait
for
here when the bus is here. As soon as the bus is here, I guess I'll just have you all notified. Yes. Yes, I know. Oh, the bus is not here, right? When we thank you, Peter. When the bus is here, let us know so that we can gather everybody up and make sure everybody's in their respective vehicles at the right time. So we'll have somebody, probably the court officer will check in with you. I'll get on the bus with the court staff and the jurors when we get the go ahead from everybody.
I'm trying to get a sense if they say how
Very
long
good.
it's
Let me know if you need me before that.
looks like not. Okay.
Trina Gotti, counsel.
So if you if you missed that, what just happened was that Adam Montgomery was wheeled into the court by monitor. He didn't look anything like this. He didn't come in person. He was wheeled in by, a monitor because he decided to stay. And he is pleading guilty to I don't get the sense that he was actually pleading. He was admitting to two of the charges. He is stipulating that he did abuse a corpse. He is stipulating to facts about the crime after the death occurred. So it really does look like what he's going to do is say, you know what? I left Harmony with Kayla and I came back and she was dead. And I was only involved in the commission of a crime of, disposing of the body. So he's going to admit, yep, it looks like, so he's trying to stipulate to some charges, so that he, in my mind, is, can seem credible in his involvement. But he's going to put the blame on Kayla for the actual death. Yep, I agree. No soul. That's just it. And with the way that the judge was talking to him about, refusing transport and things like that, I got the sense that what happened this morning was that they went to pick him up, or they asked him, okay, we're coming to pick you up, and they didn't get an answer. And then they go to pick him up and he refuses transport. Right. And yes. And Alex, they admitted that she was disposed of. And then they just allowed her to be missing for 2 years. What a fucking pig. What a pig. I'm sorry. That's your dad. Anyway, so, okay. Thank you, Alex. So obviously he has not been forthright in his plans. He hasn't been able to commit to plans or anything like that. He's been playing games. Let's put it this way. He's just playing games with the court. So I'm going to now, hold on one moment. Bringing up this article that that Alex just shared. So let's check this out. Thank you very much, Alex. Kayla Montgomery played defense. Kayla Montgomery played larger role in disposing of Harmony's remains. Lawyers for Adam Montgomery, accused of murdering his daughter Harmony, say police have downplayed the role of his now estranged wife played in disposing the little girl's remains months after her death. In a court filing, public defenders Caroline Smith and James Brooks say a police affidavit by a Manchester detective portrays Kayla Montgomery as a passive and innocent bystander to Adam Montgomery's efforts to dispose of his daughter's corpse inside the apartment. Rather than being passive and innocent bystander, Kayla actively assisted with the manipulation of Harmony's remains, and as such knew full well no saw, blade, grinder, or battery was used, the defense wrote, because she talks about those things. She has proffered those things, apparently. The defense wants to block evidence from being permitted at trial that links Montgomery to the purchase of 80 pounds of lime, a diamond blade, and a power grinder from 2 different Home Depot stores. So this is part of their strategy to get that evidence thrown out. Adam Montgomery, 33, is set to face a jury. We know all these things. So that's the background. Let's see. Smith and Brooks say Kayla Montgomery is the only witness to the alleged tampering with Harmony's remains. Police reports say she was unaware whether Harmony used tools, having left the bathroom because she couldn't deal with what he was doing. So clearly this is going to be a he said, she said kind of thing, right? Kayla denied seeing Adam with any tools during 3 different interviews with police. So she keeps changing her story, which is another part of the difficulty with this case, especially in a he said, she said thing, and there's no body. In June 2022 interview with police, Kayla said she was present in the Union Street bathroom for most of the tampering process, according to the defense filing. Indeed, Kayla declared that she assisted in tampering with Harmony's remains, including the removal of clothing. Kayla said that Adam had the shower running and she was unable to see or hear what he was doing during the process. So they're both saying, oh, I was there for part of it, but not all of it. I was there for part of it, but not all of it. But I wasn't the one who ultimately caused her to no longer be alive. Right? This is crazy, you all. This is crazy. Yeah, and I agree. Look in the mirror. I don't think admitting those facts is going to help him at all. It's like a last ditch, strategy effort from him. It would be interesting to see him testify. I hope he testifies too, just for the sake of seeing a idiot on the stand. Idiots on the stand can be, I hate saying entertainment in true crime cases. Okay. I just hate saying entertainment, but it is entertainment to watch an asshole like him be an asshole and openly say, you're just an asshole. You know what I mean? I like laughing at horrible people when I know they're horrible. Yes. Idiots on the stand are enlightening. Anyway. Yeah, it really does feel like he's pulling all the stops to get himself out of whatever culpability he thinks he can and put it on, his estranged wife. Yeah, exactly. Where is she then? If you've dispensed of the corpse, if you're admitting to that, where is she? So it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure the prosecution, hopefully, if they're smart, they're all over that. Where the hell is she then? If you disposed of it, where she is. So hopefully that will be thoroughly explored in this case, right? Wow. Anyway, so I'm going to end this stream. I will schedule another one, and I'll start back up as soon as I see things going. And I just want to thank everybody for being here, being patient with, the stops and starts. Thank you so, so much to Alex for coming up and giving some thorough details of the case. She's been following it closer and longer than I have. Yeah, you can't lie to make a deal. If they can prove that she lied to make that deal, then she can't get that deal. So, all right. I will see you all later. Take care of your mental health in the meantime. Take care of yourselves. Be kind, and be kind to other people. Be kind to other people in life and on the internet. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.